Hi class, welcome back for Kinesiology 1018, part 2 of chapter 1, our principles of physical fitness. So we're going to reiterate that regular physical activity can promote our health, and it also protects us from chronic disease. Okay, so improved physical health can improve our long-term health when it comes to chronic diseases. So our recommendations, remember, they are 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity or 75 minutes of intense physical activity per week. Okay. So if we want to increase our health benefits, we want to push that closer to maybe 300 minutes per week. If we want to achieve or cause weight loss, we want about 90 minutes per day, most days of the week. With muscular strength training, we'll talk about that and a little bit more on flexibility and other training types. Okay, so for cardiorespiratory endurance, you may think of this as cardio. Okay, this is exercise that helps to benefit our heart, our vascular system, so how we transport blood, and also our respiratory system, how well our lungs function, okay, and bring oxygen in and then get carbon dioxide out. Okay, what cardiorespiratory endurance activities are large muscle group dynamic activities that we do at moderate to high intensity. So these are repetitive large muscle group activities. So it's not just doing bicep curls for 30 minutes. Okay, this is things like running, swimming, going on the elliptical, the stair stepper, going for a walk, different things like that, where we're doing large muscle group activities for long durations of time. And this should be really our central fitness component. If we have poor cardiorespiratory endurance, it's harder for us to do daily tasks like go to the store or play with our dogs or our kids or whatever you're trying to do. When it comes to muscular strength and muscular endurance, muscular strength, the term for muscular strength is the force that a muscle can produce in a maximal effort. So this is one repetition, one time, the most force you can produce with that muscle group or within that movement. So that's what we're going to term as strength. That's our definition for strength. Metabolism, we'll come back to that, but muscular endurance is the ability for us to contract or repeatedly contract for long periods of time. You think about holding onto something for a long time, that's holding a contraction, things like a plank where you're trying to maintain a position. That's muscular endurance. That is not strength. That is endurance. So what we're going to call those two different things, but they're both part of our muscular system. And then metabolism. Metabolism is how we take in energy, so things like food or nutrients, and we're able to use them to create more muscle or to create energy or utilize energy so that we can move and produce all of these activities like going for a walk or just sitting down and thinking. Thinking costs a lot of energy. So we have to have a high metabolism or a high functioning metabolism to take the energy that we consume and use it for energy and movement and things that our body's going to do. Okay, going more into our muscular system, most of these are related to muscular system flexibility. This is the ability to move our joints through a full range of motion. Okay, full range of motion that is normal. Okay, we want flexibility when it comes to normal range of motion. Range of motion is how we move through those individual joints, how they should move. More range of motion isn't always good. Less range of motion isn't always bad. But we want to be able to move through normal ranges of motion so that we can achieve most daily tasks without pain and without hindrance within our own body. Okay. The second to last of our physical fitness components is body composition. This is our percentage of body that is fat mass compared to our percentage of body that is lean mass or not fat mass. We'll get into this in our body composition section, but fat mass is not bad. Okay, we need body fat. There is essential body fat for our body to function and to live. Okay, fat is a proportion of our brain, our nervous system, our muscles. Okay, we need fat. It's when we carry excess fat mass or we don't have enough fat-free mass like muscle, denser bones, okay, things like that, that we see problems. So we'll get further into these in a few more chapters. Okay, the last one that we often don't think about with just general fitness is our skill fitness. Skill fitness is our ability to control our movements, so things like speed, power, agility, balance, coordination. We kind of take these for granted, especially when we're younger, because most activities you do when you're younger, you're maybe running around, changing directions, playing sports, balancing, doing things like that. As we age, we often don't use as many of these fitness components. We don't practice reaction time as much. We don't practice being agile or balancing or coordination. But these can really make long-term changes within our body. Okay? Older adults that have better balance and better coordination, better agility, they're better able to change directions, the less likely they are to fall. Okay? So this skill fitness can be extremely useful, and sometimes it's a little bit more fun than just doing long duration activities. Maybe you go out and do sprints, or maybe you go out and use an agility ladder, or put cones out and run back and forth and change directions, or try to balance, things like that, that can improve your skill related fitness. Okay? Because our human body is adaptable, but it's only going to adapt to what we force it to. Okay? Adaptation is a change that occurs, and this physiological change that we're trying to cause comes from our exercise changing, or our exercise training. So short adjustments, if we just start training, we're going to see some minor benefits, but as we continue and be consistent with our exercise, we see long-term changes. We see changes in body composition. We see more lean mass or more fat-free mass. We see lower resting heart rates. We see more muscle mass. We see more endurance during activities. Okay, these happen with consistency in exercise. Okay, you can't just exercise once a month and expect long-term changes. Okay, and these changes are going to be specific to what we do. Okay, so a well-rounded program should kind of hit each of these components of physical fitness. You should do some cardiorespiratory endurance, some muscular strength, some muscular endurance, some flexibility, some focus on body composition, some focus on skill-related fitness, so that you have a well-rounded program. But whatever you do most of and whatever you do is going to force a change. If all you do is cardiorespiratory endurance exercise, you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to become more flexible. You're not going to be more skilled at maybe reaction-based activities. Okay? On the contrary, if all you do is muscular strength activities, you're not going to improve your cardiorespiratory system. Okay? So it's very specific to what we do, and in our general exercise program, we should try to hit each of these components. If you're confused about what to do for exercise, maybe you look at these three, or look at these four real major components, five major components. Say, okay, I'm going to do a cardiorespiratory endurance activity today, tomorrow muscular strength, the next endurance, the next flexibility, the next day I'll do a skill-related activity, and you cycle through those. That's a great way to start out an exercise program. It has a lot of variety, and it hits each of these general components. Okay, and then as we improve, we need to progressively overload ourselves or add additional stress to force more change. Okay, if we do the same thing over and over and over and over, we're not going to continue to improve. We're going to hit a plateau and just stop. Okay, we'll stay the exact same. Okay, if that's your goal, keep doing it. But we want to improve our adaptations. We want to improve our physical fitness. So we have to add a little bit more stress. Maybe that's run for another 5 minutes. Instead of just doing 20 minutes, you try 25 minutes. Maybe it's instead of trying to just lift 100 pounds, you try to lift 105 pounds. Whatever it is to slowly and incrementally improve your physical fitness. Okay, so it's progressive. It's short changes that we can have long-term fitness changes in the end. Okay. And how we kind of develop these programs or develop a way to progressively overload ourselves is to attack the FIT principle. Get it? Fit, fitness. Frequency is our first one. This is how often we are exercising, how often we're training. Intensity, so how hard we're training, how heavy we're training, how long or how much fatigue we're causing. the time of training, so how long you're going to be doing that exercise, and then which type of exercise. Okay, if you can answer all 4 of those questions, you can always make changes into each and every one of them to continue to improve your fitness. Maybe you exercise 1 more day a week. That's an improvement. Maybe you exercise at a slightly higher heart rate, more intense. That's an improvement. Maybe you exercise for 5 minutes longer. Or maybe you change the type. Once we change the type of exercise, our body has to adapt to those new movements, those new forms of exercise. But if we stop, okay, maybe we stop exercising, maybe something happens, maybe you can't exercise, maybe you just lose some motivation, don't want to, maybe you get hurt, our body reverses back. Our body doesn't like to keep fitness because it takes a lot of energy to maintain that. It takes a lot of energy to hold on to muscle mass. Okay, that's why it's one of the really huge inputs for changing our body composition and losing weight is adding muscle mass, because it costs a lot of energy. So after about 2 months of stopping an exercise program, you'll lose about 50% of the improvements that you gained. Okay, that's a lot for 2 months. Okay, and that only goes more and more and more the more time you take off from exercise. So consistency is the key when it comes to long-term improvements. We don't want to take too much time off. We want to continue to exercise, even if it's something light. Maybe it's just doing 10 push-ups. Okay, maybe it's just doing or going for a 10-minute walk or a 10-minute jog or a 20-minute jog or a 30-minute bike ride, whatever it is. We're trying to keep it consistent with exercise. We don't want to stop because we're only going to lose those improvements that we've worked so hard to gain. Okay, and there's going to be differences in skill and abilities based on who you are. Okay, those who are extremely athletic, or most of them were born more predisposed to having higher general athleticism. Okay, if your parents were very good at endurance activities, you're probably going to be better at endurance activities. Okay, if your parents were better at strength-based activities, or you're probably more likely to be good at strength-based activities. There are some genetic limitations, but the more we train, the more we physically do, the better we can improve ourselves and get closer to our genetic potential. Okay, we're all a little different. We're all a little better at different activities. Find ones you enjoy, find ones you're good at, and try to improve yourself along the way. Okay, and when we design these exercise training programs, first, make sure that you have medical clearance. In some cases, if you have something like a heart condition or you have another medical condition, your doctor may give you a stress test or an exercise stress test so that we can see if you are safe to exercise. So make sure you have medical clearance, make sure there's no problems, because exercise is there to improve our health. We don't want to be degrading our health by doing something that we're trying to help ourselves with. Okay, and then we'll start by assessing ourselves and setting goals. We're going to do some tests in this class. You'll administer some tests onto yourself. You're not graded on these tests, but these are assessments to see if you are, or where you are now, so that we can see where you are going. Okay, maybe you're doing our push-up test in a minute and you get 2 push-ups. Okay, that's great information for us now. We know that if your goal is to get 4 push-ups, maybe we practice push-ups, maybe we practice strengthening our core musculature, maybe we practice strengthening the arms, and set a goal for 4 push-ups, and then we reassess. Maybe you get 5. Okay, that's a great way for us to see improvement and see how far we can go with ourselves. Okay, so we combine some physical activity, we combine our systematic exercise program that has all of our healthy components, and we're going to be long living healthy individuals. Okay, this brings us to our physical activity pyramid. Okay, when you're planning your physical activity for your life, for the rest of your life, most of your physical activity should be on this bottom. Okay, this just general physical activity should make up most of your time when you're moving. Okay, ones that maybe a little bit less, maybe we're going to cardiorespiratory endurance, maybe you're doing 3 to 5 days a week of 20 minutes to an hour of something that's benefiting our cardiorespiratory system. Then your strength training, maybe 2 to 3 days, flexibility training, maybe those same 2 to 3 days. and attacking most of our major muscle groups at our major joints. And then the most infrequent thing that we do is sedentary activity. So sitting down in a chair, laying on the couch, not moving. Okay, we want to do that as little as possible. Most of what we should do is move in some way, shape, or form, do some exercise to improve ourselves, and then be sedentary less often, okay, less frequently. Okay, I have here our recommendations for each of the points in our FIT principle. If we're looking at general cardiorespiratory exercise, it should be 3 to 5 days a week at 55 to 90% of your heart rate maximum. We'll talk about going through that in our next chapter, for about 20 to 60 minutes per day on 3 to 5 days. Okay, and the type should be large muscle group activities: walking, hiking, jogging, skiing, dancing, rowing, stair climbing, any of those activities that are getting us to move more muscle groups and in a rhythmic fashion. Okay, when it comes to resistance training, we want to do this 2 to 3 days per week, and then we do 1 to 5 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions of some form of resistance that challenges and fatigues our muscle groups. Okay, we want to push ourselves to where we are fatigued, and then we can move on. And then with flexibility training, if we can do this 2 to 3 days a week, that's good. If we can do it almost every day, that's great. And hold some of these stretches for 10 to 30 seconds for 2 to 4 repetitions for each stretch at each muscle group in each way it moves. For each of these, cardiorespiratory endurance, resistance training, and flexibility training, we'll go through specific chapters, and I'll give you specific tangibles for you to implement within your daily exercise program. Okay. So here's some examples of things that we can do. Okay, things like walking would be our general physical activity, jogging would be our moderate training, and running would be our vigorous exercise. You can pick and choose and add them up so that we can have a general physical program that helps us to improve over time. Okay, but before we go, we'll go through a few guidelines for your training, especially if you haven't exercised in a while. Train the way that you want to change. If you want to get stronger, you need to do muscular strength activities. Train regularly. This is consistency. The more consistency we have, the better. If you think, okay, you exercise 3 hours per week, okay, you don't feel like that's a lot, but if that's 3 hours a week, that's looking at 12 to 15 hours a month. And it adds up over time. Okay, the more consistently we can train. Start slow and gradually improve. Okay, you're not an Olympic athlete, just start slow and improve yourself gradually. Find where you want to start, where you are, progress, and then find where you want to be and maintain that. As we increase how long or how frequently or how intensely we exercise, we're going to see improvements within that physical fitness component. Okay, so here's an example of our progression. Maybe we start with slow walking, move to moderate walking, brisk walking, and then brisk walking with hills. Okay, we're increasing the time in small increments, and we're increasing the frequency in small increments. So these are each little components that will slowly improve us over a 25+ week plan. Okay, think about exercise as a long-term training. We're looking to train for life, exercise for life. Most of us don't have a competition or something that we need to train for at a specific time. Okay, but here's some of the guidelines, some more guidelines. Warm up before you exercise and cool down after exercise. 5-minute warm up, 5-minute cool down is what I recommend. We'll talk about how to do that in our next chapter. Exercise safely. Okay, do something that you can do that's fatiguing, but not to the point where it's going to hurt you. Okay, we don't want to get hurt trying to improve ourselves. Okay, listen to your body. If you need to rest, you should take some rest. That doesn't mean, oh, I'm tired, I'm just going to not exercise today. Maybe it's you exercise at a lower intensity. Maybe it's you plan a little bit more sleep into your day. Maybe you plan a little bit better nutrition to help you adequately recover. Okay, cycle your volumes and intensity for your exercise. Sometimes you need to go with more volume with less intensity, sometimes lower volume or lower amount of training at a higher intensity, and mix them up. Try different ones. Vary your activities, try different activities. Maybe you try riding the bike one day, jogging the next day, walking the next day. Each one's a little bit different in its intensity, different volumes, different intensities, different activities to help us have a long-term training plan. And then find someone to exercise with. Okay? They can help push you, you can help push them, and they can help you stay accountable with your exercise. Okay? Accountability, consistency, it's all about how often we can do this regularly over years and years and years and years. Okay? Some other things, train your mind. Okay? If maybe it's a day that you can't exercise, maybe you read. Maybe you read about different exercise training that you can do. Okay? Maybe you practice some reaction games. Maybe it's on your phone. Maybe it's something that you do with a friend to train another aspect that's going to still improve yourself. Fuel your activity appropriately. In our chapter 8, we're going to go through nutrition, but you need to eat, okay, and eat high quality foods. Okay, so foods that grow in the ground are always good for you. Don't go for foods that are more processed. If it comes in a package, it's probably less beneficial for you than if it came straight from the ground or straight off a tree. Have fun with your exercise. Find something that you like. If you hate running on a treadmill, you don't have to run on a treadmill. Maybe you can find another activity that you enjoy doing. And then track your progress. I always recommend tracking your progress. Keep an exercise diary or an exercise log. Just write the date, what you did, and as you go, you can always look back and see what you did the week before, and you can look back weeks and months prior to see how much you've really changed. I do this, I keep an exercise log so I can see how I'm improving in what I'm training, okay? And then if you need help, get help, okay? Ask for help, ask for advice. It's always good to see what other people are doing, and maybe they can help you out with your exercise, okay? And then lastly, keep it in perspective. Okay, you're probably not an elite athlete. You probably, if you haven't exercised in the last 3 years, don't expect you to be in the same shape that you were when you were on the JV football team, okay, or the JV soccer team. Okay, you're not going to be the same person. Take yourself where you are, keep it in perspective, and then work on consistency. The first step is being consistent with your exercise. Okay, if it's 5 minutes a day, if it's 10 minutes a day, if it's 30 minutes twice a week, be consistent, miss as few as you possibly can. That's how we're going to see long-term change, right? Thank you for watching, and I look forward to next week's digital lecture.